Reaction to the vice presidential debate, of course, already coming in, including from President Trump. Let's bring in our chief White House correspondent, John Karl. The tweets have begun. Not a tweet storm yet, though, John.
Not surprising. He didn't think Kamala Harris did very well. But, George, I have to say, watching both of them, what you saw was a contrast to Donald Trump. It was in a way like both of them were against Donald Trump, at least in terms of demeanor and the way they presented themselves. Mike Pence started the debate off by saying it was a privilege to be on the same stage as Kamala Harris, commending her for making history. Hardly the approach that Donald Trump has taken towards Joe Biden. It was also somewhat maddening at times to see both of them avoid answering basic questions and not really seeing enough of a follow-up. But especially Mike Pence. And anybody, as I know you have many times, who has interviewed Mike Pence, knows that he has an amazing ability not to answer a direct question. And you really have to press him. There was no real opportunity to do it here. I recall a coronavirus briefing back in April where the president marveled at Pence, saying that was one of the most amazing answers I have ever seen because you spoke for 5 minutes and you didn't touch the question. That's basically the approach he took over and over again tonight.
I want to bring that to Martha Raddatz as well. Martha, you've, of course, interviewed Mike Pence. You've interviewed many of the people in Washington every single day, every single week, but you've also moderated debates. And as I said at the top, Susan Page had some very well-crafted questions, but what good is that if you don't follow up to get the answer?
I think one of the things is you really do have to listen to what they're saying and then follow up. And we seem to move pretty quickly on to the next question. There were very few answers to questions that Susan Page asked, and they were well-crafted questions, but you really didn't get a lot of answers. I actually thought the debate in itself was a little bit of an overcorrection of last week. I know Mike Pence said they had a vigorous debate, but I think basically there were a lot of talking points. They both got their talking points out. They both made it through. And can I just say one more tiny thing, George? When I hear people talk about mansplaining and talk about these things with Kamala Harris, and a man shouldn't interrupt her and it's going to look bad. Kamala Harris is a vice presidential candidate. She should be able to stand up for herself. Yes, it's history making. Yes, you can talk about her history and who she is, and she's a woman of color there. But a man can interrupt another vice presidential candidate. It is up to that candidate to talk back, to interrupt themselves, or to hold on to that debate in any way they could.
Cecilia Vega, take on that point.
Well, and I think we saw Kamala Harris do that. And I think actually one of the headlines coming out of this debate, George, is going to be the remarkable split screen that we saw and some of the facial expressions that Kamala Harris had as Vice President Mike Pence was talking. I mean, that really is going to be a big takeaway. I also want to go back to this issue of questions not being answered, because that is the other big headline out of this. And here's why it matters, because we have the two oldest presidential candidates in history running at the top of these tickets. And these issues that these two candidates, vice presidential candidates, did not address, packing the Supreme Court, health care, the future of COVID come January, February 2021, are issues that these two people, they may very well have to address if something were to happen to the two people at the top of the ticket.
Cecilia, thank you. Byron Apis, did you learn anything tonight?
George, in a word, no. The candidates spent the most time talking about these three issues: foreign policy, COVID, and race. And I think America got to see how the two campaigns see the world differently. At one point, Pence said, "I trust our justice system." Well, George, that's the whole purpose, the whole reason why we're having this racial reckoning in America today, because most Americans, and statistically, that's not true. So I don't think we learned anything new. I think it reinforced the narrative about how these two campaigns see America.
And Terry Moran, as we said at the top of this broadcast, two candidates, two different Americas, speaking in two very different ways.
Very much so, but speaking, as others have said, you know, from the moment that Donald Trump came down that escalator, he has dominated American politics. It has been the Trump show, his gigantic personality with his colossal need to dominate every hour of the news cycle. And here tonight, as Cecilia said, to the two oldest presidential candidates we've ever had, we got a glimpse of the future. What is American politics without Donald Trump? Well, it turns out to look a little bit like American politics before Donald Trump. And that, I think, for a lot of Americans, is going to be reassuring.
Rahm Emanuel, you agree with that?
Well, I think one of the things I would say, no, I don't. I think that you have an election here. Here's how I say it. Joe Biden is a change agent. Donald Trump is a disruptor. And I think we should draw that distinction. Usually elections are status quo versus change. This is change versus disruptor. And I think actually when you look at the way Donald Trump is now losing seniors, women with college degrees, women without college degrees, suburban voters, they do not like the destruction that comes from a disruptor. So this is a different type of election than we have ever seen between change and disruptor. And I think, in fact, the American people are, all of them, are just exhausted and have made a referendum on Donald Trump. I actually think one other thing that we should not lose sight is Kamala Harris showed she would be a partner with Joe Biden. She called him Joe. Pence said he was going to be a loyal soldier. Very different type of vice presidents.
And to say this is a different kind of election may be the understatement of the night. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.